spinner.com, it's Ground Zero. I'm 𝘮𝘮𝘪𝘴. As you probably know by now, Madonna recently gave birth to her second child, Rocco Ritchie. Her daughter Lourdes is now 4. The birth of her son coincided with the release of her latest album, Music, and for that reason, all of her recent appearances were phoned in from home or done months in advance. Our conversation in that regard was no exception. The difference was that when she joined us by phone, she was hungry to talk about the one thing no one seemed to be asking about, her music.
I'd like to concentrate mostly on being creative and, those kind of questions and what, inspiration or work or philosophy or whatever. I'd much rather talk about that than how much my son weighs or am I getting married or that kind of nonsense.
Coming up, the making of music with 2 producers on the project, Mirwais 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠 and Guy Sigsworth, contributing songwriter 𝘮𝘦𝘭𝘦𝘢, early versions of songs that made the final cut, and Madonna. Stay close.
Hey, Mr. DJ.
The title piece from Music, new work from Madonna, with help from French producer Mirwais 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠. I'm 𝘮𝘮𝘪𝘴. We'll be hearing from both Madonna and Mirwais a little later, but right now, words from another producer on the project, Guy Sigsworth. The London-based producer, best known for his work with Björk, Talvin Singh, and Seal, Sigsworth explains how he came to be involved with one of the more introspective tracks on the record, a song called What It Feels Like for a Girl.
I'd got a backing track, and when you hear the song at the start, there's this voice of the actress 𝘱𝘁𝘭𝘏 Gainsbourg, and I kind of nicked it off a movie and sent it to Madonna, because I just thought that the whole thing of that sample, it's all about sexual roles and stuff like that. I just knew that it was the sort of subject matter that she's fascinated by. And in fact, she was really inspired by it, and she wrote like a terrific lyric sort of off that thing, and it was just like, I had a few other things that I thought she'd like more in a kind of, disco style or whatever, but that was the one I always knew in my heart that she'd respond to, and she did, and she just absolutely loved it, and then she wrote the song over my backing track.
And the 𝘱𝘁𝘭𝘏 Gainsbourg left us from what film?
It's from a movie called The Cement Garden. It's a kind of a bit of an alternative film, but it's basically about a boy and girl who their parents die, and they hide naturally, but they hide the bodies and then act as if they've still got parents and go to school and everything, but they're like running their own house, and then they have this kind of mysterious relationship together, and it's a terrific film, and it's kind of quite interesting because Serge Gainsbourg, the famous French singer, who's obviously her father, I think it's his string arranger that Mirwais brought into M's album, so there was a weird way that what I was doing was highly appropriate to what Madonna was doing on other tracks. There was a kind of weird way it all tied in.
Madonna, is Mirwais a Serge Gainsbourg freak?
Yeah, definitely.
So it must have been surprisingly instinctive when Guy had this backing track fronted with a clip of Gainsbourg's daughter Charlotte.
Completely. It was just totally, and I thought, oh God, that's perfect. There are no mistakes.
What It Feels Like for a Girl. It's new from Madonna. The album is called Music. I'm 𝘮𝘮𝘪𝘴. Madonna is our guest. Madonna, you said recently that this is your favorite record of yours. Mm-hmm. That lyrically it's far superior to anything you've done before?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, hopefully I'm smarter now than I was 2 years ago.
Well, the same quote said that you now have something to say, and that when you started out, you didn't feel like you did. Or at least you, from this vantage point.
You have to live life a bit, don't you, before you really have something to say?
Of course.
That's usually how it works.
Well, what's different now for you? Is it just being, having the perspective of time?
The perspective of time and experience, and making mistakes and learning from your mistakes, and having children, and just living.
In fact, family plays into the making of the album in other ways as well. Singer-songwriter 𝘮𝘮𝘪𝘴, a critical cult favorite with 7 albums to his credit, was writing demos for his new album, still in progress, and one of the demos caught the ear of his more famous sister-in-law. It's interesting to me because after 7 studio albums and, being in the orbit of Madonna's world for just as long, the demos for this new album that you've been putting together fell on her ears in a surprising way.
Yeah.
it's probably the last thing that I've written that I ever would have thought of in regard to her. I'm just not used to thinking in terms of our lives musically relating, you know. Our lives relate, you know, over holidays and our children most likely. But it never occurs to me to think of a song of mine in regard to her. It's just a line I just don't cross, and musically it's never really seemed appropriate. But this song I wrote, and it was my wife who heard it, and for some reason kind of flashed on the idea that, you know, she goes, boy, you know, I can really hear Madonna sing this song. You know, I think you should send it to her. She's making a record right now. You should get it over to her. And, you know, I thought she was out of her mind. I thought, you know, there's things I could imagine pitching, but, you know, it wouldn't be this. And my wife, who's a very instinctive person, I've learned to be trusting of that instinct. You know, if she told me not to get on an airplane, I wouldn't get on it. So, you know, she said, well, make me a copy of it. I'm going to send it to her. And I, you know, dubbed a CD of the demo. And, you know, keep in mind, my version is like a tango. You know, it's not anything like what it's become.
Let's hear a bit of the demo right now of Joe Henry's demo of the song.
My version was called Stop. First line of the song being, don't tell me to stop. And she's renamed it Don't Tell Me.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Don't tell me to stop. Tell the rain not to drop. Tell the wind not to blow, 'cause you said so. Tell me love isn't true. It's just something we do. Tell me everything I'm not, but don't tell me to stop.
So there's a bit of the demo that you originally sent to Madonna. And what was her reaction?
Well, she responded almost immediately. You know, much to my surprise, I got a call maybe 2 days after my wife had sent it out. And basically she said, you know, I really like this song. I think it's brilliant, and I'd like to do something with it. And I don't know what, because it's so musically different from the record I'm making, but, you know, I'd love to find a way to use it somehow. And I said, you know, knock yourself out. Months went by, and, you know, I just assumed it was an idea that either she didn't have time to pursue or it didn't quite come together. And I think we spoke once in the middle there. She was in England at the time, and she said to me, you know, have you done anything with that song yet? And I said, well, you know, I'm writing for a record. It's just something else on the pile. I haven't done anything with it. And she said, well, you know, I'm still, you know, I've had a couple ideas for it. And she said, how would you feel if I radically changed the music so it kind of was more in keeping with the record I'm making? You know, and again, I said, you know, you couldn't possibly offend me, you know, for a variety of reasons. But, you know, I'm not precious at all about songs in that regard, you know. And again, a couple months went by, and sometime, I think it was, you know, it was like Christmas Eve or something. It was right around the middle of the holidays. I got an email from her from London, you know, very just chatty, catching up with the news, you know, our kids, etc. And, you know, kind of almost as an afterthought, she said, oh, by the way, I recorded that song. I think you're really going to dig it. And, you know, it was maybe a couple weeks later when I finally, you know, heard her version of it.
Nice Christmas present.
It was a very good one. It might be a good one this Christmas as well. You know? It's the gift that keeps on giving.
What was your reaction when you finally heard the song?
My first thought was that I was surprised that lyrically it had stayed as intact as it had. And musically, I just thought it was a groove. You know, I thought it's almost my favorite singing I've ever heard her do. I think it's really soulful. And I like a lot how lean it is, how stripped down it is, and unadorned it is as a basic track.
Madonna, what was it about the original that captivated your imagination initially?
The sentiment of it, the defiant attitude of it. Don't tell me to stop.
Yeah.
Just loved that.
It must have been an added bonus that the inspiration came from within the family.
Absolutely. There was many poetic things happening, and on this record, things just falling into place and coming to me that I felt were all meant to.
Huh.
So,
does it always happen that way?
It happens more when I'm really paying attention to things than when I'm just haphazardly rushing through life.
Don't Tell Me is the song, the album, music from Madonna. I'm Douridas, the man behind the controls on that track, and the bulk of the album is Paris-based producer and artist Mirwais Ahmadzai. We talk with Mirwais and hear more from Madonna when we continue at Ground Zero. Stay close. From Spinner.com, it's Ground Zero. I'm Douridas. Madonna is our guest, along with her producer, Mirwais, a French producer and artist who we're actually hearing in the background at the moment. Mirwais was simply out to get a record deal when he sent a demo of his own work to Maverick Records, and he explains how Madonna landed in his life.
The first contact was made by a friend of mine, Stéphane Sednaoui. He did the video of Disco Science, my first single, and he sent it to 𝘮𝘢𝘯𝘕, the boss of Maverick Record and the friend of Madonna's friend, and he loved the tracks, and he played to Madonna, and she loved it, and she called me back.
She called you back.
When she called me, she just listened to one track, Disco Science.
All from Disco Science?
Yes.
It's amazing that she would hear where she wants to go in that one track.
Yes, for that reason. I love her because it's rare.
Madonna, what was it about Disco Science that you heard that told you that he was the guy you wanted to work with on the new album?
It reminded me of Africa Bambaataa and when the sounds that were coming out of New York when I first started. So it felt a bit nostalgic, but then there was something really new about it. And also, I could tell he had a sense of humor.
Yeah. The inspiration usually hits like a lightning bolt like that?
Yep.
That's Disco Science from the debut solo album by Mirwais, the French producer who was handpicked by Madonna to produce most of her latest release, Music. Another track from the Mirwais album is a song called Paradise, and it features a guest vocal by Madonna, who fell in love with an early demo of the song. And the song also turns up on Madonna's release.
When she listened to it, she asked me if she could sing it. And me, I was really happy because she sang it really well, and the only problem was she wanted to include it in her album too, and I asked her to give me the permission to include it on my album, and she agreed.
Not only did she agree, but she agreed to let you put it out before she did.
Yes.
It's mostly in French, isn't it?
No, mostly it's just one verse.
Oh, it's just the one verse in French.
Yes. No, Madonna's French.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool. I like it. I mean, because sometimes when you wrote a song in a language you don't talk perfectly. You could there is something interesting and funny in the way you write because it's not your original language.
Madonna, how good would you say your French is?
It's pretty good. It's not great because I studied French and I lived in Paris for a while, and at that time it was fantastic, but unless you're hearing it all the time, it's pretty stinky.
Well, it must be a challenge to write in a language that is not your own.
Not when the person you're collaborating with is French.
That's called Paradise, new from Madonna. Find it on her new release, Music.